Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome, and I call this meeting to order. The roll call has been taken by the clerk. This meeting is being held in a hybrid format in accordance with Article 18 of the city's procedural bylaw. Staff and delegates participating virtually are reminded to keep their video and microphones off until requested by the chair or members of the committee. All cameras for virtual committee members shall remain on to ensure quorum. All members of the committee will vote by a physical show of hands. Please leave your hand raised until the chair has determined the result of the vote. In the event of a connection or service interruption that affects quorum, we may recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting will be adjourned. Item number 2 is declarations of conflicts of interest. Any conflicts with anything on tonight's agenda? Are we frozen?
It looks like our image is frozen. If I can just get a virtual member to give me a thumbs up if you can still see our.
No, you guys are frozen. We can hear
Okay.
you, but we can't see you. But all the virtual members, I can see them all moving.
Can you hear us as well?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just can't see what's going on there. We had a freeze frame of Nathan and a freeze frame of Tamara.
Okay, we're gonna hold a second, see if we can get that restarted. There we go.
Yeah, we're moving.
There we go.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay, so we don't have the owl. The owl's acting up, so we'll send it to the vet and for the next meeting. Okay. So there are no presentations or delegations for tonight's meeting. We have one item for consideration, which is a heritage impact assessment for 50 Market Street South. I'll ask Rahul Nargas and Riva White of SBN Architects and Planners to come forward and provide an overview of the application. The reminder, you have 10 minutes inclusive of questions from the committee.
Hello.
Hello.
Hear me? Oh, great. Hi. Thank you very much. Is Raul? Yes,
Yeah,
he's here. Okay, great. He's listed as Riva White, but he is not Riva White. I am Riva White. Thank you very much to the committee. My name is, as I said, Riva White. I'm a senior planner and planning consultant with SBN Architects and Planners. I'm excited to be working on the 50 Market Street South proposal, which is currently under review for a zoning bylaw amendment application with the city. Today, myself and my colleague, Rahul, a senior associate with SBN, will be discussing the heritage impact assessment prepared by Common Bond Collective. Unfortunately, our heritage consultants, Common Bond Collective, are unable to attend tonight's committee meeting as they have a conflict and they send their sincere regrets. Rahul and I are here to give an overview of the proposal and speak at a high level to the heritage impact assessment for the committee's benefit. We will do our best to address any questions if they arise. However, I want to be clear that we are not subject matter experts, and if questions do arise that we are unable to answer, we may need to find different channels to answer those questions. We appreciate your patience with us, and I look forward to doing our overview. Next slide, please. Thank you. So before I get really into it, I would like to say that the site is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Mississaugas of the Credit, and Natural Peoples. It is located on the Holloman Tract and within the area of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, Bum Belt Covenant, a pre-colonial agreement that dates back centuries between the various nations of the Great Lakes region to peacefully share and care for natural resources. Brantford is, as all of you know, still home to many diverse nations, in particular the Mississaugas of the Credit, along with the Inuit and Métis people. So as you can see on this map, the site is located in red and in Brantford's lower downtown precinct. It is also located within Brantford's urban growth center as delineated by municipal and provincial policy. Next slide, please. So the lower downtown precinct is currently under a transition. This map is taken from the planning justification report prepared by us at SVN Architects and Planners. As I mentioned, it's currently undergoing a transition. You can see in the colored building outlines some development applications that are currently either approved or under review, and which is reflective of the current policy. You can also see on this slide the protected heritage resource, the reason why we are here today. Next slide, please. So this is taken directly from the Heritage Impact Assessment. Sites A, B, and C are the proposal site. Site D is 60 Market Street South. So the subject property is not currently included in the City of Brantford Heritage Register, either under subsection 29.1 or subsection 27.3 of the OHA. The subject property is adjacent to, however, 60 Market Street South, as I just mentioned, which is the D property, which is the subject of a notice of intention to designate issued under 29.1 of the OHA. The property at 60 Market Street South contains a former Toronto, Hamilton, and Buffalo THNB railway station, which was built in 1896 and is considered by the City of Brantford to be a cultural heritage resource. Next slide, please. So the site has seen many forms over its lifetime. This is the 1950 fire insurance map showing the extent of the heavy industrial presence that occupied the site. Specifically, this is a map of the Waterous Engine Works complex. You can also see towards the south, the Toronto, Hamilton, and Buffalo railway station and railway yard. Next slide, please. Today, this site currently serves a commercial function. You can see on this map taken directly from the Heritage Impact Assessment that the majority of buildings were constructed post turn of the century, with the majority being constructed after 2003. Next slide, please. This is 60 Market Street South, the heritage property that I spoke to earlier that is, again, not on the site, but directly adjacent to. It's currently unoccupied. As you can see, this picture was taken in 2021. Next slide, please. And this is just showing the interface between 50 Market Street South and the Heritage Building. This was taken in 2023, and as you can see, it's currently has hoarding wrapping around it. And next slide, please. Now I will hand over to my colleague, Raul, who will speak to the proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Deva. And thank everyone for giving us opportunity to kind of present. I think one thing that we do at SVN is really looking at how the complex informs the future. And one thing which really impacted us as we looked at the history of the site, the history of the surrounding was there's a recent history of settler history in terms of kind of building and texture, but there's also kind of deeper history on how the site actually inhabited the land. And there was a kind of, I think, reference to an older image in which it showed the site sitting nested between this natural setting. So I think we take all of that into account as we walk through it. And the slide that you have in front of us really looks at our review of the complex, both in terms of the texture of the city of Brantford, but also looking at how we apply that in a more contemporary way. We don't want to kind of put a design scheme which is kind of pastiche, which either gets dated or takes false assemblage of passing and tries to pass it off as future as present. But importantly, what we learned from the city of Brantford and walking through the streets and looking at the history was this deep sense of street, a deep sense of community building, but also looking at the jagged, the elevation line, the datum lines that the street provides, the texture of materials, and all of this kind of really informed us as we both develop our architectural forms, but also looked at what kind of materials and what kind of texture and what kind of spaces we should develop as we progress forward. Next slide, please. So this is a kind of a snapshot of the proposal as it stands now, which has been submitted for a review with the planning committee, planning team. What you have in front of you is a 4-phase development. Block 1 being phase 1, which is on the corner of Icombe Drive and Clarence Street, and then in a clockwise way, block 2, block 3, and block 4 being the subsequent phases of the development. What we really took into account while we were developing the urban design response was this idea that the station land, the station building, needs some space, it needs a presence. And that's how we responded to it. We also realized that Market Street is a really important street, not in terms of it being a, say, main street or retail street, but also establishing this almost a healing connection between upper downtown and lower downtown as it exists now. The sharp division that the parking structure provides is a barrier. So we looked at the ways in how do we use the station building, how do we use Market Street, and how do we use a build form response to actually bring all these disparate elements together. So what you see in front of us is a height regime which tapers down to the station building, the taller buildings towards the faster streets. We envision Market Street to be a more walkable, pedestrian-friendly, retail-friendly street leading to the station lands. And if you look at the images below, the first image on your left-hand side, which shows this tower element there, in which kind of the clock tower, that's the building facing the station lands. We provide ample space below it. And if we don't have a landscape plan in front of us, but that's space we are calling the southern gathering space. Inside is a central gathering space. So both in terms of placemaking and placekeeping, we want to make sure that we take into account what exists now, but also provide enough opportunities for this site to kind of heal and connect back to the city. The second image that you see in the middle at the bottom on the bottom in the slide is the street C that you see between Market Street and Clarence Street. And for what we're proposing is kind of townhouse typology, which kind of faces the street, so establishes both a presence, but also allows a host of activities to kind of take place there, mostly residential typologies. And the last image is the central space, which is there. But if you look at all three images, the vision that we have, which is still developing, I think as we go into a later stage of the site plan, we'll develop it more, is to really take into a conscious effort to take the material and the textures and the forms that we have learned from our exploration in Brantford.
Rahul, I'm sorry, we've used the 10 minutes. Are you able to wrap up within the next 30 seconds, please?
Yes, let's go to the next slide, please.
Yeah.
That shows you the separation distance between the existing station building and the Market Street and the street C at the south end of the proposal. Next slide, please. That's a full build out in which we have internal streets, street A and street B, and street C connecting, so allowing permeability through the site. And then the last street, I will hand it over to Reva to just walk us through the mitigation measures.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So in the interest of time, I won't read all of the excerpts of the recommendations and findings. Kind of the HIA agrees with Rahul and what he was speaking about in terms of our design moves. And I'd like to just highlight that they stated that it does not negatively impact the 60 Market Street South property. In terms of mitigation measures, they recommended a few, including identification of the protected cultural heritage on any plans or studies that is done, making sure that that is clearly noted, as well as doing protective hoarding during construction phases, and of course consulting with a qualified engineer to see if vibration monitoring is recommended specifically in that phase 3 build, and then of course implementing whatever mitigation or monitoring is recommended from that engineer. And I think that wraps up our overview, and we look forward to any questions if there are any. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So with the indulgence of the committee, I will, we haven't had an opportunity to ask questions, so I'm gonna allow some time for questions. So any members have questions for the delegation presentation? No? Okay, well then I'll ask my questions. No one's gonna ask any. So in some ways, I feel like some of what I'm going to say is a little bit unfair because I have some questions about the report. And I know you guys aren't the experts in that. So I'll take what you say with a degree of caution. So the report talks about the history of the site kind of from 1875 onwards, but you don't really talk about the site kind of before it or before the train station is there. And I would suggest that this is perhaps the most redeveloped site in town. It's had several redevelopments, and it's kind of missing a significant part of the heritage kind of before the train station goes in. A question that I have for you are these streets going to be city streets, or are they gonna be retained by the developer as private streets?
And they're going to be retained by the developers' private streets.
And would you be open to naming those streets based on historic street names within that parcel site?
I think the developer will be open to the idea. They really want to make sure that this site resonates with the community.
And then my other question is, because the site has a lot of history in the gathering place as well, right? Is that would there be an opportunity to showcase some of that history in that gathering space, perhaps with some historic plaquing, images, things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think we have left the landscape plans for the site at a very high level because we feel that there's a wider discussion that needs to happen in terms of what needs to go there, in terms of both of historic representation, in engagement with Indigenous groups that we've already started. I think we are open to kind of a host of ideas on what could come there.
Okay, thank you so much for answering those questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, Bev has one as well. That's popped into her head.
I'm wondering about the stage 1 archaeological assessment and if it has yet been completed or if it's still ongoing.
I think stage 1 report was submitted. We are waiting to submit the letter to the ministry as far as I know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions before we turn it over to the committee? Dan Brown?
I guess more of a comment. I guess I'm looking forward to finding out about the vibration report, whether or not it has to be done or doesn't have to be done. I'm hoping that we will know that at some point and you'll inform us of that.
I think that is one of the mitigation measures that have been suggested in the report. I'm not the subject matter, unfortunately, but we can definitely provide a response to that question.
Okay, Rob, I see your hand as well.
Yes, thank you. We found out with other former industrial sites in Brantford when they go to be developed for other uses that soil testing and soil remediation was required. Is that going to be happening in this case, or has any testing been done?
Yeah, so we have a hydrology consultant on board. We have been in the phase one. We're looking at alternate sites for kind of boring and then testing. So that is that's going to be done in tandem. The question lies in kind of sequencing all the work, because we understand the record of site condition can take many years. So we are working with the developer and the consultant to understand what is the best way to kind of get through the end stages of the development. But all required testing we should be done.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time and your presentation. I appreciate it. And we'll move forward to the committee's portion of this. So it's time for some comments. There's a motion that it be received and that we have the opportunity to add comments. So any comments that members have that they want to raise now? Sorry, Beth.
I was just very pleased to see the sensitivity that was given in the overall outline to how the massing was designed, and so that the buildings would slope down to the level of the TH&B station and not to overshadow it. And the use of the materials at that corner being red brick and mimicking one of the chimneys. So thank you for that in your design.
Okay. Lisa's madly taking away comments there. I can see her. Rob, you have a comment you would like added?
Yes, just in the heritage impact assessment document, it was listing the various industries that existed on both sides of the market, and not just the site in particular. I just want to suggest an addition to that list of companies. If you look on page 49 and 50, the PDF document of the Heritage Impact Assessment, you'll see maps, and the original site, it had a street running through it called Jex Street. In the original Watrous property, the Jex Street was the northern boundary of it. And on Jex Street, another company existed known as the Watrous Wire Nail Works. And that got, though it was a smaller company, it got left off the list in the assessment. So I'd like to see that noted as being added to the list. You'll see in later maps, Jex Street disappears because in around 1911, 1912, the company purchased all the properties on Jex Street, including the nail works, which was run by Julius Watrous, the son of the founder. And Jex Street was absorbed into the property as it moved northward. So I just wanted to make that notation that, and it would also be important if the development includes any kind of heritage placking and notation of industries that once were located there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? People? Okay, I'm gonna add mine in then about the street names owned by the developer should be based on historic street names within the subject property. And I know that there's a number of them. Jack Street was just mentioned. There was also Oneida was a street that was formerly in there. There was also like an East Newport, an extension of Newport that went through there. And in the heritage impact assessment, there was some errors in the street name. At one point it called it East Clover, another point it called it East Cover. The street name was East Cove. So Cove Street would be an appropriate name. And as well, the Watrous Nail and Ironworks, which Rob mentioned, that was on the corner of something. There was a little street that ran through there, and it was called Strickland. Strickland Ave, and Julius had bought the factory off of Strickland's. Strickland's used to own the building that Julius then bought and turned into his nail works. And the other comment that I would like added is going to be a little bit shorter. It's that the gathering place should include historic plaquing to tell the history of the area. So any other comments from people before I seek a mover and a seconder? No? So Rob, is that your hand up again? Or was that, okay, sorry, go ahead.
I know we're making comments, but I just have a quick question. Even though the 60 Market Street is not subject to this development, is it owned by the developer as well? Or who owns it?
Patrick might be able to answer that for us.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So through you, Chair, this is a separate owner from 60 Market Street. I don't have the name of the owner of 60 Market off the top of my head. I know they have a few other sites in the city, but this is a separate owner. So they're looking at adjacency.
Thank you.
Okay. Are you able to bring up the comments so people can see them, just so we know what they are? And I'm looking for a mover and a seconder while she brings up the comments. I see Councillor Sullivan, Sarah. Okay. Everyone's clear on what we are voting on then? Any questions about what we were voting on? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. I declare that carried. Moving right along. It's going to be one of our fastest meetings, I feel like. There's no consent items. The next is minutes. Can I have a mover and seconder for the minutes? Councillor Sullivan. Dan? Any errors or omissions that anyone caught within the minutes? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question on the minutes then. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, I declare that carried. There are no resolutions, no notice of motion, so I'm entertaining a motion to adjourn. Sarah. Yeah. Hey. Quick, fast, easy. So thank you everyone for your time, and look forward to seeing everyone in February.
Good night.